Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Dana with the Data. And I have a special guest, Mr. Pierre Wilson. I said your name correctly, right?
You did. You did.
And you are the um, Senior Director of BLEXIT.
Yes. Yep. For Turning Point USA. Yep.
Yeah. So please introduce yourself to my audience.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. And like you mentioned, I'm the Senior Director of BLEXIT for Turning Point USA. I actually launched the very first BLEXIT chapter. So I was hired as the first BLEXIT employee way back in like 2018-ish. So really honored to be here and to share more about the work that we do and that I do. And yeah, I appreciate you having me on.
Okay. So my first question, um, what is BLEXIT?
Yeah, so a lot for some of your audience who may know a little bit about Brexit, they probably know it originally was the Black Exit from what we used to say in the early days, the Democrat Party. But
Mhm.
we're not a political organization. I know some people think we are. We're actually a 501c3. So we've kind of expanded that. It's not so much about one party or another. It's really, we call it the exit from the victimhood mentality, or whatever chains that bind you. And for some people, that looks different. It could be, some people refer to generational curses, whether it's like, they've never learned how to manage money properly, so they're reckless with their spending because their family has been. We want to help you break that chain, right, and get to a place where you understand the importance of managing your money. It could be a mentality of I am black, so I probably won't be able to accomplish the same thing as my white peers. We want to break that chain because that's a chain, it's a mental chain holding you back, right? We want you to know that the American dream is also for you. So it just really depends for that person, but we want to break whatever chain it is that is holding that person back. And we do a lot of work in the Black community, but we've also seen organically that we've had Hispanics and even Asians who have resonated with this mission. So we kind of consider ourselves the leading minority outreach on the conservative side.
Okay. So can you be a Democrat and be a part of BLEXIT?
Technically, you can. We actually do have people who are left leaning. Now, I will tell you, there's not a lot that are a part of Brexit, but we have some because ultimately, our goal and what I've shared with people before is that we're not here to make you believe something. We're here to make sure that whatever you believe is because you truly believe it. We've found work going into these communities. There's a lot of individuals who believe things because their mom believed it, or their dad, or their grandmama, or their grandpa, or their teacher, or their favorite celebrity. And it's like, no, 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 no. We want you to do your own research. We want you to know where you stand, what you believe in. If that does mean that you do your own research, you say, you know what, I think I'm more left leaning, then okay, we can at least go to bed at night knowing that it is your choice, it is your decision, and no one, forced you to think that way. But a lot of individuals, I will say, that join us, they do hold conservative values, and we do have. I think it's a scale. There's some who are hardcore conservative on every single issue.
Right.
And we have some who are conservative on some, and maybe a centrist or left leaning on others. But more than anything, we want people to think for themselves.
Right. Okay. So we gotta get into a little bit juicy.
Yeah.
Little bit of the tea and
Come on.
the tea with BLEXIT, and TPS USA. So recently, you guys, and I don't know if you currently are in the middle of your HBCU tour, and it kind of hit a little bit of a bumpy road.
Mhm.
Um, so what happened? Because you had several dates to hit. Was it 7 or 10 HBCUs?
10
And
roughly, yeah.
so Candace Owens canceled her appearance. I don't know if it was the universities, but then recently Hampton University came out and saying that you guys were not authorized to come on the campus to engage with the students. And I love, I'm a woman of a certain age. I have grandkids, but I have 2 grown adult children, but I love the fact that college campus, you send your kids to college to be engaged with multiple types of ideology, perspective, and people. So I love the fact that BLEXIT was going on HBCU campuses, and I didn't know you guys. This is not the first time or the first year you've done this, so this is nothing new. But as of recently, you had a couple of two guys, I forgot their organization, went on a college campus in Tennessee and they got ran off. But Blexit is different. So
Mhm.
please talk to the HBCU tour um,
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you mentioned this too. This is actually not our first year. This is our third year doing it. A lot of people don't know that we did it 2 years, the past 2 years prior. This one has gotten a lot more attention, a lot more media attention. And obviously, Turning Point, we lost our founder and our CEO, Charlie Kirk, who was murdered, right? So like we know that that brought a lot more attention around Turning Point as a whole. But also I think Blexit uh, is being noticed. Sometimes all it takes is one or two people to tweet or say something who have a mass following. Next thing you know, it's everywhere. So there was a mixture of a lot of things. The foundation we'd already built, the name recognition we were starting to get, Charlie being murdered, and a lot of things just put a huge spotlight on this particular year. But we have, to answer your question, we have had a very difficult time. I will not sugarcoat it with a lot of the faculty and staff at these universities. People always ask me, "How are the students? How are the I'm like, hey, I saw what happened with those two guys who did that tabling. I think there's this called like the Fearless Debate Tour or
Yeah.
something, and
Yeah.
I know the students were involved for the last 2 years and now three because we just wrapped. The students have never been a problem for us.
Right.
The students have actually been really great. We have students who disagree, but even when they disagree respectfully. And I think it's because we are very respectful, and also, again, we're a uniquely equipped organization on the right. Most of us are black. Some of us have went to HBCUs. A lot of us were, formerly Democrats, like we or left leaning. Like we know we can relate with a lot of the students on these campuses in the space that they're in right now. So I think that helps tremendously. But the faculty and the staff have been very difficult, if I'm
Yeah.
trying to use the right word, very difficult to work with. The more that they know about us and the more that they know about Turning Point, they work overtime even before we ever step foot on the campus to keep us off the campus. We had university presidents and all sorts of people emailing their students telling them not to engage with us, and we hadn't even gotten there. It's one thing if we get there and we cause a ruckus and we cause chaos and whatnot, and they're like, "Don't engage with them." Say what? We hadn't even stepped foot, and we had come the last 2 years without any hiccups. So we had proof now that we have come to these campuses, and we were able to engage respectfully with the students. So this was, to me, disappointing for multiple different reasons. But to speak to the Hampton one, there's a lot of things that took place. I will let you know, and maybe I don't know if I should say it or not, but yeah, there was some paperwork that I think that was not fully approved. It wasn't because we didn't submit it. We certainly submitted paperwork. They, like a lot of these schools always do, they say, "Oh, we're going to get to it. We're going to get to it. We're going to get to it," and they
Mhm.
don't. And the biggest issue why we had decided to make the choice to at least engage with some students around the campus was because we had two young ladies previously before we came who had months before in the spring tried to register a club. For those who don't know, having a club on the campus that is recognized by the campus is hugely important because they can invite you. To they can just invite you under their club. Their paperwork has been held up for almost. I mean, it's going to be a
Now,
year in
was this
spring.
at Hampton or was this um at Florida A&M?
What? We
Because
had
I,
an issue at Florida A&M too, but Hampton held up paperwork for us too. We had young ladies who were trying to start a club in the spring, and their paperwork was not approved. And then we had two young ladies who tried to join in after we came out to the stop, and then they were, from what I understand, they were pressured by other students, in fact, or by faculty mainly, and a few students to not align with us too. So I think the environment on some of these campuses is not friendly to conservatives.
yeah,
So some of these hiccups you're hearing are really because of what we believe, not because it's just safety and security and all these things they're saying. It's really, to me, censorship. It's silencing thought. And FAMU, we have a meeting actually with FAMU tomorrow. We made a deal with them. I don't know why they released it. Maybe they were trying to save face and act like they kicked us off. They can't. They're a public school. We could come. And their lawyers even said that on the phone call to us. They were like,
mhm,
"We can't actually stop you from coming." They did say they could pull out security, which I thought was crazy, but they said they could not legally stop us from coming. We made a deal in good faith, to work with them on another event. They would allow us a room. with a certain capacity that they could, that they could fit. So we could do an actual bigger event on the campus. Now we don't expect them to be hugely supportive, but they are giving us the room. We have a meeting tomorrow to work through some more details. We'll
Okay.
have to handle our recruiting ourselves, which is fine. But we made a decision mutually to not come in favor of doing that.
So, because last year, me and Judge O'Brown interviewed Sharice. She is a student at FAMU because she was trying to start, I think it was like a Republican
The
political
clubs.
club, which is great. And she got a lot of pushback, but I don't know. I have to follow up with her. But when it hit the media, that's when, okay, you have one of the faculty come in, and I think the president to help assist her with the club.
Mhm.
But, that is a problem on specifically HBCU campuses because it is heavy Democrat and liberal mindset, and college is the perfect place for voters, because
Mhm.
they are the next generation, the future generation of voters and political leaders. So, it is, I won't say brainwashing, but I was toying with the title of this interview here, and I came up with the Black Conservative Awakening: Breaking Free from the Democrat Plantation Politics, because that's exactly what it is. It is a Democratic plantation politics that's going on. So, and even if you are conservative, or Republican, you may not agree with another Republican. That's You're just going to have disagreements, but everyone should have the freedom to participate in politics and freedom of speech. So, what what is the future of the HBCU tour? You are going to go maybe to FAMU, or is there any colleges left that's saying, okay, we don't mind that you come, or is it we'll just see what happens next year?
Yeah. So we are not going to stop. This particular round of tour stops is finished. We just wrapped up our last weekend, but we typically do these in the fall. So we do have some plans for some events in the spring, which I don't want to share too early, just especially because the schools are, but this particular tour that we do is a fall tour, built around homecoming season.
Right,
And BLEXIT will absolutely continue to do these every year. And the reason why is what they don't want to report on is how successful it has been for us. And actually, maybe that's why they're partly trying to stop it. We have 21 clubs right now that we recognize, which means so your audience understands is that we have students on 21 different HBCUs who have stepped up to the plate and said, yes, I am ready to open and lead a chapter. Many of those students have paperwork into their schools that is not being processed, right? And we're working on ways to fight that. We're going to have to run this thing up the chain. We'll go as high as we need to bring attention to this because it's not fair for these schools to not allow these clubs on these campuses. But we do have 21 different schools where we already have students. 17 of those schools are a direct result of us doing Educate to Liberate, this tour that we're on the last 3 years. So we know it's successful. We know it's been our way in. And we know that there's students on these campuses who are thankful. If I had a penny for every time we met a student who's like, I'm so glad you guys are here. We've had students who said, hey, I don't necessarily agree with everything you guys are saying, but I do believe that there should be a place where you guys should be able to have a club or something on campus, right?
right.
Like, thank God for students like that. Even they're saying, hey, I don't agree, but you guys have a right, right?
Mhm.
And that's all we're asking. We're going to follow university rules. We're not here to cause any chaos or ruckus, but we do want to provide a space where conservative students on campus don't have to feel like they're being silenced.
Right.
Because we talk about these schools and we say, well, they're left leaning, and it's in theory, but a lot of students have no idea why they're left leaning, and it's not to knock their intelligence. I was like that. I went to college. I spent 3 years at a HBCU. I went to the University of Maryland Eastern Shore.
Okay.
Before having to finish elsewhere because my major wasn't offered there. But I this is not to knock the students' intelligence at all. We meet some of the brightest students on these campuses, but when it comes to the political things and stuff like that, a lot of the beliefs that some of these students hold are a direct result of what they were taught in their household.
Right.
Maybe their mom or daddy said, this is the way, this is how
Right.
you got to think. This is, they don't care about us over there. They racist, right? And we're undoing a lot of that, and we're allowing them to do their own research, come to their own conclusion, and many of them are finding that they have conservative values. You
Right.
know, so we're absolutely going to continue. We're not going to stop.
Where's Candace? Because Candace is popping, honey, and she has been the face of BLEXIT, good or
Mm.
bad, negative or positive, but she's moving, shaking, and popping right now. I do content on her, the numbers go up, but where's Candace Owens? Is
So,
she? Because she basically handed the reins over to you, right,
mhm,
for
yes.
BLEXIT, because she created it, but is she still involved? Like, what is her role right now when it comes to BLEXIT?
Yeah, so Candace is our founder. You know, Candace and Brandon Tatum. I want to give Brandon a shout out too as well on this. So Candace
Well,
Owens and Brandon
let's
Tatum
hold
are
on Brandon Tatum for just a sec.
okay.
Brandon
Well,
Tatum
those
for
are
a little bit.
well, they're our founders, but she is not involved in the day to day. I've and she let Flexa go years ago, and you know, I've known this obviously for years. We merged with Turning Point in 2023. What a lot of people don't know, I want to share this really quick. A lot of people have no idea that BLEXIT was actually really born out of Turning Point USA. Some people are like, oh,
Yeah,
you guys went to Turning Point? I'm like, we went back because
right,
our very first BLEXIT event was at a Turning Point event, right? That's where we launched. So they were a huge part of our early beginnings. So we went back to Turning Point in 2023. That's when she officially stepped away. She's our founder. You know, we're always going to have respect for what she built. She hired me. I tell anybody who listens, I'm like, look, this she was the first person in this political world to believe in me. You know, so I will always have a tremendous amount of respect for the courage and her belief in me. I'm thankful, but she is doing her own thing. When she kind of stepped away, she knew that she was going to go down a path that may not fully align with BLEXIT. Sure, there's some values that align, but she was going to get into a lot more things like deeper into pop culture. And obviously, she shares a lot of different theories that she's kind of a little bit like an investigative journalist in a way. It's the way she operates. So she knew that that was not really probably like the best thing for BLEXIT and what we're trying to do. So she separated her brand from BLEXIT. So she's completely separate, you know, from BLEXIT. She's not involved anymore, but she will ever obviously forever be our founder. And we're
right.
thankful for the early beginning.
Yeah. And got the ball rolling with that. And got a lot of young people to get involved in politics, and to be engaged, which is very important. No matter what someone may think about Candace Owen, Brandon Tatum. I don't follow him too much, but I'm actually doing a reaction to a comment he said about Rosa Parks and the civil rights movement. But he's a little bit controversial too. However, the common denominator is I have a different view. Let's engage, let's talk, and let's walk away. Let's engage respectfully. And, whether we walk away agreeing or not. And that's what's missing, I feel as though in society. So I want to ask you this question. What was your personal breaking point that made you realize the Democrat Party wasn't serving Black Americans' interests? And how do you respond to critics who say you've been co opted by conservative talking points?
Yeah. No, and well, first of all, that's a great question because this is when people do hear my story, everybody that I've talked to who after they've heard my story is actually really surprised because I didn't come from a super conservative family. I didn't have a ton of money growing up. You know, my mom was married 4 times. You know, my relationship with my dad wasn't always great. I struggled growing up. I lived in a heavily policed area, you know. So all these things that people would think would make me even more liberal or more attached to the left, it actually did the opposite. So I will be very brief because my story is kind of long, but I'm going to give you the quick version to get to my red pill moment, if you will. I will go all the way back to when I was in school and I had a paper I had to write at this time. I wasn't old enough to vote. It was, I think it was George W. Bush versus Al Gore.
Okay.
And I wasn't old enough to vote. And my teacher said, I want you to go and write home. She told the class, I want you guys to go home and write a paper on who you'd vote for and why. So obviously you need to look at both candidates. At that time and at that age, I was much more interested in video games and girls and stuff like that. So I didn't care anything about Republican and Democrat. I just I didn't care anything. I was into all the stuff the younger guys were into back then.
How do you now?
So I am 36. I'm
Oh, okay.
36.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm
So, but
I'm
the
49.
hey, well, at least you
I
look,
was
yeah, you don't look
an adult.
black don't crack. Black don't crack. Listen, you know,
Right.
you don't look that.
No, 'cause I was an adult
But
with the Gore Bush thing, but yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, I anyway, I went home and I researched both candidates. I did not necessarily care who was Democrat or Republican. I was just doing the paper and researching both candidates. At the time, I was like, man, I think I would vote for Bush. And the reason why is because there were a couple policies, a couple things that he was advocating for that I thought would probably be beneficial for our community. And it was really just some of the conservative values he stood
Okay.
for. And I wrote the paper on Bush, and I remember my mom seeing it, and she got halfway down the paper because I would always give it to her to proofread. So she got halfway down the paper, and she looked up at me. I will never forget the look.
And fell out.
It was one of disgust. One of like she was shocked. She was like, "You are not turning this paper in," and I'm like, "Why?" She proceeds to tell me about how Republicans are racist, and starts talking about slavery again and all this other stuff. Long story short, I was like, okay, mom is always right. I wrote the paper on board, turned it in, moved on. But something felt weird. The second moment for me came when I actually was at a HBCU, the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. I was old enough to vote, and everyone in the forum there was like a forum. They had this, it was like a political type of forum, and they had some guest speakers on stage talking about the election, and they had a audience segment where they started passing the mic around, and people could say who they were going to probably vote for and why. Everyone's saying Obama because at this time it's still the primary. It's Obama and Hillary, right?
Mhm.
Um, Everyone's saying Obama, Obama, Obama. The mic got to me, and I said I don't know who I'm going to vote for because I'm still doing a little bit of research on Obama. I know a little bit more about Hillary. Remember, Obama was like a senator for maybe 4 years at the time or something. He was still relatively new to the political scene. I knew that I was a Democrat. Right by that time, I was all in on them. Speaking the talking points and everything, but I just didn't know out of the two of them. And then I said, so I don't know. I'm not sure. The young lady who got the mic after me, before she made her comments about who she was going to vote for, she took a second to address me. And she goes, how can you, as a black man, not know who you're going to vote for? So I'm looking at her and she's looking at me. And that was it. It was that he was black and I was black. So that should have been enough. And I was just like, wow, that feels weird, because like, what if a white person walked in here and said, I'm going to vote for Hillary because she's white? Like, we would all be offended. I
Right.
thought that was really weird. So that was the second moment. The final moment, the third moment, crazy. I was just up late one night watching videos, YouTube videos, and I saw a video about Black conservatives, and Candace was in it. I remember watching one on Dr. Swain and some other individuals, Thomas Sowell. But I thought I was just going to get a good laugh in, because at that time I thought Black conservatives were clowns, and I'm going to be honest, I was told they were coons, they were Uncle Toms, they had three legs, they were weirdos. So I'm just thinking I'm going to get a good laugh in. I'm watching these videos, and the joke is actually on me because I'm sitting here and like listening intensively to what they're saying. I'm writing stuff down because they're saying stuff in a way I've never heard it. I'm like, this cannot be true. I'm like, I'm gonna research this. My goodness, I researched all these different things that I wrote down, and almost every single one was true. And
And
I was
you
like,
align with that
I
that
aligned with it. Yep.
yeah,
They were talking about just things somehow, the single motherhood rate of black and black crime, but not even so much of these things, the welfare system. It was like how we got here that
right.
got me, right? Because no disrespect to, I know people have different situations. I'm really careful not to put everybody in a box, but how we as a whole, our community got to some of these places, it really intrigued me when I really started digging deep into policies and different things that were put into place,
Mhm.
and when things started to shift for our community. And I was shocked. And I can talk about it openly now, but back then I felt a lot of feelings. I felt scared at one point because I was like, who, like,
During
who?
that was during the Obama years, and listen, I voted for Obama twice, and it was because,
Yeah.
yeah, a black man, but I didn't do my research, and I'm a grown adult, but I didn't care because the history of America when it comes to black people in politics. However, if we was digging a little bit more, because there was no such thing as FBA or ADOS terms back then. So,
Mhm,
you know, it's not his mom, right? Fine, but dad, yes, he was. I don't know. He wasn't an American citizen. He was an immigrant, but
mhm,
he was
mhm,
raised by his stepfather, who was in the CIA, and then Barack Obama came into the presidency already as the wealthiest president. I hope he did everything else, but he didn't do nothing for Black Americans, but people voted twice because that man was Black,
I
and
love
he
his
was
skin.
all types of wrong, but I don't trust politicians anyway. But the point is, yeah, I voted for him twice because he was Black. And then I did vote for Hillary over Trump, and not because, oh, Trump is a racist. It was because he's from The Apprentice. He's from TV. He's a
Yeah.
businessman. He's not a politician, really which is why I should have voted for him the first time because of that, because he
Yes.
wasn't a politician. But I do want to bring Trump into the fold here because I voted for him in 2020 and I voted for him now mainly because of the open border and other things with the economy. But the Trump administration policies, and I kind of want to include Black America. So, looking at his track record and current political climate, which Trump era policies do you believe actually benefited Black Americans? And where do you think conservative approaches fall short in addressing systemic issues affecting the Black communities? So, the
Yeah.
first part is, which Trump era policies do you believe actually benefited Black Americans?
Yeah, I can even go back to his first term. A lot of people don't realize, even in his first term, Trump did things for the Black community specifically. And now I'm not even an advocate of just doing things specifically for one community. I think that conservative policies, when done right, can will benefit the Black community. But when you go even look back at his first term, things from like opportunity zones, for example, I know uh, there's some flaws in that system. I would like to see it beefed up a little bit, but I do believe that it led to a lot of opportunities for a lot of Black women, right? Like I look at some of the rate of Black women who started businesses. I think that's one that we can look at and say, who is that benefiting? How could it help? And I think it helped the Black community. Another one is what he did for HBCUs, right? Like people don't know is I still remember that picture of all those HBCU presidents standing in the Oval Office behind him, and they were smiling ear to ear. And the reason why many of them were smiling ear to ear is because Trump had just permanently funded them in a way that no other president had done. I mean, a lot of people don't know about that. I guess it didn't get a lot of national attention. Anything that he does that I think is beneficial, especially to a voter bloc that the left owns, you're not going to hear about it in the media. They're going to try to drown that out.
Right.
But that was another example too, as well. But I look at just when you look at conservative values just as a whole, like lower taxes or his belief in closing the border, people may not understand how this helps the Black community, but it does. Closing the border. I remember in a debate where he spoke about this, and people went off and say, "What's a Black job?" I remember that part. It's like a Black job.
Yeah,
How's it affecting Black
Black
job? What's Black
It was
job?
that was a hashtag,
And
Black
I'm
Job.
like, Black jobs. And I'm like, whether you like the way it was said or not, which I didn't have a problem with it, but he was
Right.
on to something because a
Mhm.
lot of these illegal immigrants who are coming in, if you look at a lot of the jobs, not everybody's in the box, but a lot of the jobs that many in the Black community are doing, they're one of the first groups affected. So
Right.
whether you like it or not, that's the numbers back that up. You know what I mean? Like it's not fake. That wasn't fake news. That was real.
Right.
And they're impacted by it. And you look at just in general why the left is even bringing these people in. They're bringing them in because they're placing abortion clinics all over our community. We're aborting our babies. They need a new voter bloc. They need a new group. They need someone to protect their vote for decades to come. The Black population is not booming. It's actually, I think in the last census, I want to say it went down some. So
Yeah, it did seem a
we
little.
yeah. Yeah. So you think and so him saying, hey, like you that baby's precious. Like we should save that baby. They're targeting you. They're targeting the Black community. Like that's something that people don't look at and say that it impacts Black. It does. It does. It's not about women. People say women's right. No, he wants more Black life. How's he racist? He's asking you to keep your baby and have that baby and
And
boom
that
the
was
Black population.
the
It's
abortion thing was also a Republican talking point. I am pro-choice, not so much, oh, because I want you to have an abortion. No, it's just, I want women and people to have autonomy over their medical decisions, but
but
the
he,
abortion, the abortion or for me, pro-life is not just 9 months. It's also a lot of post abortion is going on, because if you are poor, and even if you're a career person, but if you're poor and you bring children into the world, listen, a lot of poor people are getting pregnant. Not wrong with that. But where is the resources and the support that you are giving families, so that they can,
Afterwards, yeah,
yeah. And if
yeah.
there's
No, and
not
I
there, then the abortion is your child running the streets, committing crime, end up in prison or dead. So not being
Mhm.
productive citizens. Um, so yeah. So if we're
No, and
looking at, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, so I just to add to that point, I 100% agree that after the baby is born, we can't just say, okay, great, baby's born, doesn't matter anymore now. Like I've advocated for resources, more support after the baby is born. But even with you, saying that you're pro-choice, if you look at it from this perspective, though, if I'm a racist and abortion clinics are largely placed in Black communities and I'm a racist, why would I speak up? Right. So, regardless, I'm like women's rights, whatever pro choice, whatever the reason is for whoever's pro choice. If I'm a racist, though, and I know it's primarily impacting the Black community, I would probably not make that a central issue because I'm racist. Right. So I would be like, oh, let them kill their babies. No problem with me.
I mean, no
So
politician
it
that he
just,
put out for the incarceration. Like if he
yeah.
was racist, unlike Joe Biden, he wouldn't have had the First Step Act. That was under his
Yeah.
first
The
admin.
first step back is another. Yep, that's another one, right? Just giving these people an opportunity to reintegrate into society as well. Like,
Mhm.
there's so many different things that I can point to where he has, and let's even move beyond the fact that he's president. Let's go backwards. This man was awarded medals, from people in the Black community. He has a picture with Rosa Parks. There's a picture of Jesse Jackson, and called him all, like, said he was a great man. All these different people. The only thing that changed was that he put an R next to his name for Republican, and now all of a sudden he's the biggest racist in the world. No, this man has a history of being loved and supported. I remember growing up listening to rap songs where Trump's name was dropped so many different times. People like he put an R next to his name, and all of a sudden he's racist. No, he's not. He's the same man. He's a New Yorker. He's blunt. He's always been blunt. He's gonna. Do I always agree with everything he's saying? No, but that's the beauty of, for me, being conservative. Like, I can say, hey, I disagree with that, right? And I don't feel the same backlash I felt on the left when I disagreed. And people ask, are you being? Is it because you're being paid to say these talking points? I'm like, I felt like I had talking points on the left. I felt like if I said, "Oh, I don't agree with this with BLM," or "I don't agree with that," you guys looking at me funny. I don't get that same treatment on the right. I can say I don't agree with it. The right is always in some version of their own civil war, and some people are like, "Why are we always fighting?" I actually think it's not that bad. I think it shows diversity of thought on our side.
Right.
People are battling all the time on our side because we do challenge each other. We do push each other. We don't always agree with everything, right? And that's the beauty of our side. The left, I'm like, I had to agree or I was looked at funny. So, I would say for anybody who's kind of in the middle, I would let them know, like, if you want true freedom, I don't think it's on the left. So just let you know.
Yeah. All right. So listen, I know we're short on time here. Two more questions. It's the second part to the question, where do you think conservative approaches fall short in addressing systemic issues affecting Black communities? Because Charlie Kirk, yeah, he was murdered. Um, and I know there was a lot of people online, that's a lot of stuff resurfacing on his comments about the Black communities, what is wrong with it. And, I get what he was saying, but honestly, it was the wrong person saying it. And then some of the stuff wasn't just accurate. Um, However, you know, Republicans, conservatives, they do get a bad rep not addressing systemic issues affecting Black communities. And maybe it's because they're not there or not engaged as much. Now it's starting to be more engagement. But, what do you think, or where do you think conservatives fall short when addressing systemic issues affecting Black communities?
Yeah. So I'll say this, I I may have a different belief when it comes to who can deliver the message. I do believe that Brexit is uniquely equipped to do it because, again, a lot of us are Black. We've come from these backgrounds. We know. So I do, and I think Charlie understood that. That's why he believed in Brexit so much. But I would never, and I know this is not what you're saying, but there are individuals out there who are like, well, he should never speak on anything, and nobody who's white should speak. And I don't agree with that sentiment. I think that people, as Americans as a whole, black people can speak on white people, because we should all be able to speak. If we see a problem, we should be able to talk about it. But I do believe, and Charlie believed this too, that the people who are leading that charge, though, it does matter. And that's why he believes so much in Blexit, and why he took us on, in 2023. But for me, I don't think it's so much of a system, right? I think there are a lot of policies that the conservatives already advocate for that will help. I think it's more about the engagement, their effort, the time that they spend in these communities. I've been on record multiple times saying that for decades, conservatives sat behind mics and cameras and all sorts of stuff, and they talked about things, but there was not enough effort to go out there and to engage with these communities, to actually meet people where they are, have conversations, understand why they think the way that they think, right? You just throw a bunch of facts at somebody and expect them to just say, oh, you're right. That's a losing strategy. You know
Right.
what I mean? There's a lot of there's an emotional piece to this. For me, again, I can speak from my own personal experience. I was a pretty much an AB student in school. I considered myself pretty intelligent. I thought I was a guy who thought for myself. Yet I was sitting here, voting a certain way because I was really actually manipulated. Whether my family intentionally meant to do that to me or not, it was what they knew. My mom knows what she knows. My dad knows. Someone did it to them. So it just kept coming on down the line, right? So no matter how strong minded I thought I was sitting here voting for something I didn't even realize what I was voting for. And it took me having that red pill moment and saying, wow, I need to actually learn what I'm voting for, not just vote against them because I was told they're racist, not just vote against them because Black people historically don't vote for them. Like, why am I actually voting for Democrats? I had to ask myself that honest question. And I didn't like the answer. A lot of it was really not based around fact. It was all emotion. It was
Mhm.
all emotion. So, but Republicans sitting here saying, well, the facts are this. That's great. But do you understand what it's like to grow up in a low income? Not saying all Republicans are rich, because not a lot of some of them are who come from low income backgrounds too. But do you understand what it's like to grow up in a low income background, or be in a community where you're taught to be afraid of the police, because they're looking for people like you, or to be told that the other side wants to put you back in chains and stuff like. There's a lot that we have to work through, and
Mhm.
that's with going and having conversations with them and understanding why they think the way they think first before you just automatically group everybody together. You know? Yeah. So hopefully Blexit is doing that. I think it's our responsibility on the right to help teach the right to do this.
Mhm.
Uh, and I think we are. And that's why these tours, and I'll say this, I know you have another question, but that's why these tours are so important, because we are showing them that it is possible to go into these places and have a healthy dialogue, have a conversation. And yes, sometimes you may agree to disagree, but when people feel like you're respecting them and you care about the way that they feel and the way they think and why they think that way, that goes a long way. So we have to, as a whole, Republicans and Democrats, bring down the temperature. And then for Republicans, they have to actually go into these places. Go into these places.
Well, let's raise the temperature up a little bit. 'Cause, honey, it was a blue sweep on Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Um, I'm in Ohio. I need Ohio to stay red. I came here from New Jersey, so if this turned blue, I'm leaving. May have to go
We
to
needed
Florida.
you in New Jersey. See, we needed your vote in New Jersey.
Well, listen, it was a blue wave Tuesday, Dorhan, in New York City, and he got up there and he said, "Yes, honey, I am a Democrat socialist." Um,
Mhm.
the governor of Virginia, something Burger, she was a former CIA
Ever.
officer. Um,
Mhm.
and Mikey in New Jersey. I'm sorry, I'm calling her the dumb blonde, honey. If she is a blonde, but a dingbat in New Jersey who's governor. But and then when Prop 50 was passed in California, a couple of Democrats picked up local seats in Georgia. They have Detroit got a new mayor, but they were always blue anyway. So it was a blue wave of victory Tuesday, which is a strong indicator for midterms, which is next year. So maybe BLEXIT, y'all gonna have to do some more tours, honey, in the spring to gear up for midterm because midterms is very important. So I wanted to get your thoughts on the blue wave.
Well, listen, I think for I will say this to conservatives: don't panic. Don't panic at all because a lot of these states, a lot of these places, they're Democrat strongholds. I mean, they really are. I mean, yes, we had a rigged governor in Virginia, but we remember he barely won that election, and he won that election because he actually, I believe, ran a much better campaign in Winsome. And I love her. I got a chance to meet her. She's great, but she really, honestly, didn't spend a lot of time in places where she should. I don't even think she went to any black churches or anywhere. I think that they should have done a lot more to engage certain voter blocks. And I don't think she did nearly enough. In my personal opinion, it may not have been her. Maybe it was the people that were advising her. But I think that campaign should have been run a lot better. So I'm really not shocked, and I actually have been silently, privately telling people that I think she was going to lose because I saw the way they were running that campaign. But Virginia is typically blue, and they haven't voted for a Republican for president. I think I want to say maybe 2004 or something. So this is not a state that I would consider a strong Republican hold. And same thing with New Jersey. I think New Jersey's moving a little bit, right? We saw how Pennsylvania is starting to shift a little more red. I think we can do the same with New Jersey, but this is going to probably take a couple election cycles. But I do like that we're getting some traction there. But again, not a shocker either. And then Prop 50. I mean, listen, California is the blue haven of all blue states. Like it is where the liberals go and try out something random. What do we want to bring to the
Right,
rest of the country?
but
Let's try
but
in
the thing
California.
the thing with Prop 50, that's for the midterms because they will pick up 4 or 5 seats in Congress. So
Right. But
that's where that came in.
But the liberals overwhelmingly like supported that because Gavin Newsom and they had Obama out there. I think Kamala went out there. I mean, they had all their liberal heroes out there backing that. So, and again, this is a very blue state. So there was not, it was an uphill battle for Republicans to defeat that. So I look at this and I say, yes, was it great? No, I don't want to minimize it at all. It wasn't great for us. It wasn't a great night. But at the same time, am I panicking? No, because I don't believe that it's going to be a reflection of what we're going to see in the midterms. Remember, Texas is already done redistricting. Redistricting. I always say that right. Wrong. Redistricting. It's like a tongue twister. But they've already done their maps, and California is simply just trying to respond to that according to them. But we have states like Florida, the great state of Florida that I'm in, that may be working on a map here soon. There's other states that are going to be working on maps. So I think when I read it, and this was I want to say New York Times or CNN, some group that's not super friendly to the right. They said if every state did this, Republicans would win because we have more options, to change maps. So this is not a fight that the Democrats really want to go. This is not a road they want to go down. They don't want to go down this road because they're going to lose. So ultimately, it's not a good night. It wasn't a good night, but we don't need to panic.
Yeah,
We'll be fine. We'll be fine.
I
Uh,
did an X space last night, on Tuesday night, and I said Republicans need black voters to win, and Imma stick with that. You need black men, you need some black women, but you're gonna need some black people from the independents and the Democrats to vote Republican to stay in power.
And Winston, like I said, for just use her as an example, she did not do a good job, and I thought I was very disappointed considering she was a black candidate. And I'm like, how do you not reach out more to the black community? So whoever was advising her, not good because she missed a lot of really good opportunities to go out, even if you go to a place where they disagree. Just your presence there, right? It means a lot to people that you're willing to have that conversation, you're willing to engage. When you avoid those areas, it's not a good look.
Yeah.
It's not a good look.
Well, listen, I really appreciate you coming on because I know, you have a busy day. We actually went over 30 minutes, but it was a good conversation. I actually had a
It was
couple more
good.
questions, but I definitely would love to have you come back. I
Absolutely.
want to encourage people to go and join BLEXIT, especially if you're a young person or older. But they can go to the website and join your local chapter, you know. And if you do see BLEXIT on your campus, college or universities, engage, have that conversation, challenge thought, push back, network. Yeah. So what would you like to say, in your final remarks? And thank you, Mr. Wilson, for coming on.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me on. And just the final thing I'll say to your audience is get involved, whatever it looks like for you, just get involved. We need everyone in this fight. Some people sit at home and they're like, oh, it looks like they have it handled. We don't, we need, we need everybody. And whether it's BLEXIT or another group, hey, maybe BLEXIT's not the group. I hope it is. We would love to have you. But if it's not and it's another group, that's totally fine too. We just ask that you get active and get involved in the fight to save your country.
Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thank
And I
you.
look forward to having you come back on.
Absolutely.
Dana with the data. Dana with the data.